It's the perfect union, the perfect podcast for the perfect country. Hello, everybody. I'm your perfect host, Hank Thompson. Thanks for tuning in. What a thrill to have you here. This is the debut episode of our... Okay, goddamn, I can't handle that music. Jesus. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Perfect Union with Hank. The show, you're listening to this on the Winners and Losers network of podcasting greatness. That's right. It's finally, long time coming. Been really struggling to get this thing launched. And, I'm not sure I'd call it launched, but it's off the ground. More like thrown. In the movie Rookie of the Year, starring that one kid who has a broken arm, there's a shot where a baseball flies up in the air and you can see the hand at the bottom of the frame. Really funny. Look for it. It's like the opposite of a boom mic because it's a hand at the bottom, not technology at the top. Although hands are kind of technology. This is how I podcast. Welcome to the show, everybody. So as longtime viewers or listeners know, I ramble. I get distracted by my own thoughts, and I go off on crazy tangents. And I'm not going to stop doing that, but one of the ideas behind Perfect Union is to do that less. I want to do that more on Winners and Losers. So I'm going to keep... So right off the start here, let's just talk about a little about Perfect Union, what it is, what I want to accomplish with it, where I want it to go, and how we got here to doing a second podcast. It's not really a second podcast. It was originally conceived of as that, kind of like a parent having a second kid. But being the mad scientist that I am, I realized that would be completely overwhelming. So I decided to stitch the children together to have a baby one and then tie it into the other kid. So first we got Winners and Losers. That's a show I started in 2010. It's been around forever. Off and on, did it consistently earlier. Blah, blah, blah. There's a whole history to that. And recently, though, making this turn into being utterly mortified at our fucking politics. Well, it was always pretty mortifying, honestly. Let's be honest here. This is America. I mean, shit, it's been perfect. It started perfect. But the process of becoming more perfect has resulted in the diminishment of the lives of most of the people who've ever lived on this fucking continent. So I won't be clapped because I felt like I made a good point. But I don't know. So with becoming more focused on politics, and as I've explained on Winners and Losers, I've been really interested in politics for a very long time. I grew up watching McLaughlin Group. Was one of those kids in high school who knew politics and paid attention and shit. I work in political media, in the online political media world. It's been a big part of my life. I'm not an expert. I'm just one of those. I feel embarrassed calling myself a comedian, but I guess that's probably the most accurate term. Particularly the parts of it where you're just like kind of sad and failing. So, Winners and Losers was like kind of just a standard comedian, circle jerky talk show, just having fun, being a goofball, and politics would come up a little bit here and there. But as time has gone on, and especially in recent years, in the reboot of Winners and Losers, that became very political. It's what's on my mind. It's a very interesting topic. There's a lot to be upset about. There's a lot to be angry about. There's even some things to be excited about and hopeful about. But I decided that, I wanted to kind of segment or change things up and sort of do something that was exclusively politics and sort of try to build a show and an audience around my political leanings and my political education. I think I want to be clear, that's a big part of what I hope to do with this is to share what I learn as I learn it. I'm not going to read to you, it's not my job. No, that's actually not true. I'm going to read you. I have articles and stuff picked out. But I'm not claiming to be an expert. So if you're looking for like authoritative, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know exactly what I'm going to, say and do and think and feel and how you should say and do and think and feel. This ain't your show. There's some of that. Yeah, I think there's some of that. But I will get some stuff wrong. My spirit... I do it in the spirit of getting it right. I don't want to be incorrect, but I know for a fact, and I worry about that. That's why I'm bringing it up. But the idea of not even separating, but starting a second show is pretty enticing. and I was pursuing that as like its own thing, as its own feed, its own YouTube channel, its own whatever, SoundCloud. But it's me. It's still me. And the kind of winners and losers, if you listen to the last few episodes, it's just me rambling about politics. I realized if you've been paying really close attention, you notice it's like I've been a little bit slow to pull the trigger on Perfect Union. And one of the reasons is I'm just fucking tired and exhausted all the time. And I'm barely able to do zero podcast. I'm barely able to pull off one podcast a week, let alone 2 full ones. And so it occurred to me, though, kind of a moment of whatever the opposite of brilliance is, a flash of inspiration. What's the opposite of flash? Okay, all right. I could just basically consider Perfect Union a segment of Winners and Losers, like kind of its own standalone thing. I'm going to post it as a separate file. I'm going to try to keep the topic on politics and share the more rambly kind of like personal stuff and some politics. There's so much to talk about. It's insane. Like just doing some prep work here in the first hour or for the last hour before I hit record. It's overwhelming. There's just so many stories. There's so many things to get into. And I've actually been lining up guests. I don't have a whole slate of people picked out booked and lined up exactly, but I've got some feelers out there already. I've got a couple of comedians I know that are going to come on the show, and I've got some people I'm planning on reaching out to, and maybe even some people who have a little profile and some names, and some folks from my work. That'll be kind of cool. So it's things are starting to move, but don't expect a lot out of this one. I did do some prep here. We got some stories to talk about, and we're going to get to that. And I'm not going to do this every time. This is going to be one of the sloppier ones, and I'm trying to squeeze in a podcast here on a Tuesday night between working and eating, and I'll be sleeping. So that's the capitalist way. You get most of your week is devoted to boss care, and you get maybe a few minutes a day for some self care. It's nice. It's nice that we have an economy set up around just a little bit of time for yourself. Yeah, you take a few hours. You take maybe a couple hours, and you just watch the glowy box, and the glowy box will tell you how to feel. It'll soothe your pain. Or you want to watch someone touch a fish and then cut it up and do something cool with it, turn it into art, and then turn it into poop. Funny how artistic, like even fancy food becomes shit. It all does. I know I'm not the first person to point that out. See, this is winners and losers material, but what the hell was I talking about? Oh yeah, we're all lulled into this complacency by our exhausting lives, and I'm no different. So that's a big part of life, though, or at least this world that we're in here is figuring out a way to cope and to get by. And to be honest, I'm okay. I'm doing fine. As we like to say in "Don't Give a Shit Land," it could always be worse. So I'm doing all right. I could always gripe and whine and shit, but I'll do that on Winners and Losers. That's the whole point. I got some topics. I got some salad bar stuff I want to say. Oh, you got it coming, salad bar. You hear me? Beto skateboarding, Winners and Losers exclusive. It's also been on Twitter for about a week. We got a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to tell you about my bum rush. This is great. That's the product I'm making. We're going to bring it to market, and we are going to have world domination within 6 months, or my investors are going to pull out. No, that's not true. I'm going to make custom squatty potties out of found furniture I find on the streets of L.A. In fact, okay, see? There's a winners and losers topic. All right? Now, you're starting to get the hang of this, right? You're starting to understand the concept. And, it'll be a blend at first. And as I get guests on, I think what I'll do is with a guest is I'll pitch them doing a show. We're doing two shows. One's political, and then the other one's kind of like the one where we just sort of play grab ass and, a little badminton in the backyard. First, we'll do the fighting in the living room, the political talk, telling our uncle that he can't say the word Oriental anymore unless he's talking about rugs, and even then, as long as it's appropriate, depending on your definition of the word rug. And then we'll go out and we'll play badminton. You get the metaphor? Me neither. I'm not sure why I'm going with this one, but I'm going to leave it in. I could delete it, but I won't, because fuck you. No. So we're going to develop. So thanks for your patience. Thanks for your attention. We're going to make some stuff. I got some cool ideas. the limiting factor is time and energy, as always. And I was actually about to not do this tonight. So I talked myself into doing it, waking up early and doing it. And I just, let's get it done. You get nervous, when you do something new. You get kind of excited, it's like setting off on a big journey, like Frodo and Samwise Gamgee, like Beto to on a skateboard. You get it, you get a little excited, but you also get a little scared, and that's good. Fear and excitement are nice. They're not actually. They're not. Over time, this will become more routine, and meaning like there'll be more of a familiar rollout of these stories and of when these podcasts come out. I am going to try to focus on doing perfect unions on the Winners and Losers feed, but I am going to focus on doing perfect unions, and then Winners and Losers will be sort of a secondary thing. So if a guest only has time for an hour, it's going to be a perfect union political thing, depending on the guest, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because not everybody might feel like chatting about politics, and we can talk about all kinds of stuff. There's all sorts of shit to talk about. The Joker movie seems to have everybody aroused, not in a good kind of arousal, the sort of, like when, like circling coyotes kind of arousal sort of thing. like an ornery buffalo kind of arousal, just something's ready to pop off. It's like, it's fucking scary. So I'm trying to avoid it, though. I am excited to see the movie. I do want to see it, and I try to see movies without spoiling them. But I will see it eventually. We'll talk about it, and it'll come up again. Why am I rambling about that? So today on Perfect Union, we're talking about the impeachment. There's really not much to say about that. I do want to talk about. I got some audio from Colbert, where Bernie Sanders made an appearance. He ragged on Trump a bit. He got into his healthcare policy, and then we're going to talk about Biden too. I'm a big fan of dunking on old Biden, the Jar Jar Binks of human land. He is. He's our Jar Jar Binks, Jojo Biden. The guy he's annoying. He's a racist trope. Nobody wants him to come back. He had his time in the sun. And he is susceptible to hack comedy, like making fun of Jar Jar Binks and Jar Jar Binks references. So there's your Joe Biden for you. He wants to sniff hair. He likes to sniff hair. This guy. It's insane. It's fucking crazy. See, all right. Now, okay, good. It's just introducing everything. I just want to talk about this stuff. That's all this is. It's just me wanting to share my thoughts. I get frustrated. I don't get to talk in other venues. So I want to just talk, get it out there. Fucking Biden. I can't believe that we have to put up with this crap. The Democrats are idiots for thinking that this is the guy that has any shot against Trump. Now, I would bet that he would beat Trump just because it's just so. I almost can't fathom the notion that he would lose or that Trump would win again based on what we now know. Meaning, like, enough people, I can't. But the election we're already off a cliff, but somehow in fractal America, there's another cliff. There's a lot of angles to take. We're not falling in a straight line. It's like we're falling in weird geometric patterns because everything is top. And that's, I wouldn't say by design, but I do think if you're at all familiar with Adam Curtis's hypernormalization, if you're not, look it up. It's on YouTube. It's awesome. It's incredible. You got to be in the right mindset for it, though. It's a big, heavy lift. It's like 3 hours. Chop it up. Think of it like a turkey. Don't take one big bite. Chop it up. Take little bites. And Thanksgiving's coming up, everybody. I'm excited. It's my favorite holiday. Just kidding. No, it's not. Whatever one gives me the most days off, that's my favorite holiday. So as you kind of get a sense of in hypernormalization, confusion and feeling like reality is difficult to pin down is a very useful feature to authoritarian societies and things like that. And we're seeing that done to us right now, right? We're seeing it happening in real time. I don't think it's Trump's intention per se. I just think he has an intuitive sense that the world is easier for him when you're confused. And the Republican, and he's not the only purveyor of this. Is purveyor purveyor, isn't it? Like user, not seller. I don't know, whatever. He's the only one. He's not the only one doing that. It's a kind of thing that sort of. It's like a spell. I think of a lot of this kind of political stuff as a spell, not like a literal magic astrology, Marianne Williamson bullshit kind of stuff, but like invisible forces, invisible influences, things you're not conscious of, things that still get into your psyche, that get into anything. And that's the sort of stuff that I'm really fascinated by. So it's a fairly destabilizing thing to be alive these days. And that's hopefully one of my goals, even though I'm a distracted, rambly weirdo, that people who listen to this and come to it and look for some clarity on some of these things from my perspective, which is largely socialists and democratic socialists. The terms, call it, I don't know what you want. I'm not. Terms are prisons. Terms are fences. They tend to lock you in. So I tend not to. I try to avoid too many specific labels, particularly in that sense of identifying yourself with a particular movement or not. People are generally a little bit more complicated, a little bit more layered. But if I were to pick, that's the angle I'm at. My politics has become much more radical. I hate that concept of radical. Why is it radical to care about everybody? Why is it radical to think that everybody deserves dignity and that we have the power and the ingenuity to produce a country and a world where everybody can have dignity, where everybody can live fulfilled lives? I don't think they'll ever reach 100%, but what we have now is not that. We're not even trying. Why is that? That's just it drives me insane that that's considered fringe. You know what we have now? We have centrism. Well, that's a little ridiculous, but we have this. Here comes the labels. But we have this corporate first neoliberal, society that's just really just a continuation of what's always happened in the world and always happened in society. Is that the more power and money wealthy have, the more they can concentrate their power and their income and their wealth, and the more they get to manipulate and control governments, if not be the government themselves. And they do it with this grueling system of capitalism that's driven by consumerism and it's driven by consumption, and this concept of eternal growth, which is actually absolutely ridiculous. I don't have audio of this. I haven't gotten any of my stories yet. But Greta Thunberg mentioned in one of, and I hope we'll play this eventually, but she called it your fairy tales of eternal growth, and like that's exactly right. What are we doing? What the fuck are we doing here? So the people who are in charge are literally jeopardizing 7+ billion lives with pollution, with environmental collapse, ecosystem collapse, global warming, all these ways that, if we disrupt the oxygen supply, if we release a pathogen from the Arctic mud fields that are forming because the permafrost is melting, if we disrupt food supplies, if we're going to shrink the coasts as the oceans are going to raise up, the freshwater or the salt concentration of the ocean might change to the point where the warming waters, the conveyor belt that cycles cold and warm waters throughout the ocean might shift in a way that disrupts the environment. We literally could go extinct. More than likely, there's various scenarios as to how this plays out, but the best case scenario is terrible. Most people don't think there'll be an extinction. I think humans are pretty scrappy animals. I think we're pretty durable, pretty tough. A lot of suffering. We put up with a lot of shit. Enough to fuck and have babies and then get them to the point where they do that. That's what requires a species to keep going. We'll do that. We'll probably be like little scrappy survivors in various pockets throughout the world. But, it could also tip over completely. There could be some just crazy. The kind of challenges that or the kind of forces that we're putting in motion are potentially beyond devastating. And the ones that were guaranteed are already pretty devastating as it is. Just the cost of all the extreme weather events, food shortages, migration that emerges from food shortage, and desertification of land. That's pretty much what happens as this planet heats up. Its forests and its grasslands give way to desert, which is less hospitable to life. Then we have to all eat scorpions and those cool spiders, the ones that like lift a leg and they lift another leg and they lift another leg, and they do that and because the leg gets hot. Like when you're holding a hot bowl, you use a finger, you like change your fingers around. Pretty cool, huh? So anyway, that's the idea. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'm losing track. Honestly, I'm fucking starving. I haven't eaten. and I'm ready to be done with this shit on my day, which is so not the kind of enthusiasm someone wants to show. Let's start with some fun. I was going to do Colbert on with Bernie first, but let's go with some Beto. I think it's always fun to take a dump on this guy. So this dude is a real performer. You want to hear the skateboard coverage? Go to Winners and Losers, okay? But for now, I came across looking this up. Somebody asked him. This is a video in his car. He's driving. And I assume he's with a staffer or somebody's asking him. This is a lot like those Elizabeth Warren videos where she looks at the camera in the car and says, like, I got this note from this lady, and she wants to know what. And she goes, that's right, Julie from Tulsa. We're going to fight. We're going to, so she does. Elizabeth Warren pulls it off. There's a tinge of, I don't want to say disingenuousness, but there's always that performance-y aspect to all politicians I find obnoxious. The least detection I have of it is in Bernie. His main thing seems like he's annoyed that he has to do any of this at all. But he actually demonstrates some pretty good quick wit and personality too, which is obviously important. He wouldn't have reached this level if he wasn't able to handle it. But Warren's good. But so this is Beto doing a Warren impression in a way. And so he's driving and talking. So someone's asking him a question. We'll just play this, and I will pause it when I feel like taking a shit in his open mouth. Are you ready? Let's do it.
Do you remember Eric Garber, our friend, Dark Side of the Moon? Yeah,
Pink Floyd.
That's right. He is on.
Already. Pink Floyd. Really? No, I don't know. Pink Floyd. Okay.
And he is
that was a terrible comment, Hank. You idiot. Delete that.
Asking, what's the best birthday gift you've ever received?
Okay. Tough.
You know what? When I was in 6th grade.
So that first, that was him loading a file, coming up with some bullshit. I've already listened to half of this. It's bullshit, but it's funny. All right. So he starts with the 6th grade thing. I just rewind it a little bit. Here we go.
When I was in 6th grade. Circa.
Circa. What?
I woke up on my birthday, September 26, 1983, or so.
Or so. I mean, I'm not. Look, okay, he's got it. That's fine. That's nothing like material there. But politicians have to be so careful about what they say. They know they get their words scrutinized. Some jagoff's going to play them on a podcast and break it apart like an idiot. And make fun of him. But so he's like 6th grade, but circa, in case he was wrong, and around 1983 or so, in case he was wrong. And it's not even ragging on him because he's not the only person that does that. This is just a comment on the weird inauthenticity that our system kind of provokes from these people. It's like a shade of, they're like a weird shade of a plant, or it's like they're a plant that is forced to grow some strange leaves because we're giving it the wrong nutrients, this system, because of the way the media looks out, from all angles, comes at these people with these weird, like, we can't just have an authentic person just tell a story, just be who they are, just say what they're thinking. They have to always, it's, okay, whatever, let's just keep going.
And my dad he'd gone out for a run. He would run most mornings, and so he was all sweaty and recovering from his run.
Getting a little turned on.
Talking to my mom in their bedroom, and I was
so sweaty dad and mom are talking in the bedroom. Cool. What if his dad didn't even go for a run? He just went out to get the newspaper, came back sweaty because he was super wealthy and they lived several miles away, meaning the newspaper, several mile long driveway. I'm terrible at this. But Beto grew up real fucking rich, or he's from a rich family. I think he married into money. I don't know, but he's a rich guy. This is a rich, not rich like your uncle who has a nice boat, knows how to sail. Not that guy. These are like rich, like they would have owned slaves rich. They would have been like the fucking, although that's not necessarily a mark of wealth. There was a lot of ranges within that scenario, but like big money rich. I should have the numbers. I don't. That's why I'm not saying them, but I know it. We'll do it later.
Walking up from my bedroom to go to the kitchen to get some breakfast, and they wished me a happy birthday, and he had a skateboard.
Whoa. He had a skateboard. It was his birthday. March 26th or something. Going to get breakfast. Who tells a story about going to get, like...
that he had bought for me. I just remember that scene that he'd just been running. He had this skateboard that he'd bought from a store called Locals Only in El Paso. And I can't remember the brand of the deck, but it had...
The brand was whatever you drive. Everybody, it was whatever skateboard you
had
drive.
This pizza grip, grip tape, and...
Yeah, Beto. I grew up in the Midwest. Fuckface. We had skateboards. You know where we got our skateboards? Target. We were poor. I don't even think Target existed, okay? But we still somehow got them there too. We had old shitty... We did have some skateboards. They were terrible. My brother, there was a kid across the street. My brother would go work on it and try to fix it. There was this one shop we would go to, but all the skateboards were always ridiculously expensive. So you had to just like the crappy one with the shitty wheels.
Was the first...
My dad didn't exercise. He didn't run. Could barely read. No, I don't know. My dad can read, of course.
Skateboard I owned. It was really cool, and I remember I took it to school or rode it to school.
He's still wearing it. He doesn't ride skateboards. He wears skateboards.
And then later on, got a Tony Hawk deck, Palo and Peralta. And that was the second skateboard I had. But anyhow, that first skateboard,
Yeah.
my dad getting that gift, kind of...
Oh, well, now I feel bad. That guy's bonding with his dad over a skateboard. You know. When I was 13, my dad gave me a shotgun for Christmas. He had just come back from a walk. He was covered in sweat. He had walked to the shotgun store. He was standing there talking to my mom naked. She was naked, too. She was covered in sweat. His. And I remember I remember waking up and had one of those kid boners. That's not really relevant, but, you know, that happens. And I was walking down it went away. You know, they go away, too. I was walking to get breakfast. There was a partially eaten Pop-Tart in the garbage that I was going to pull out, and I was going to pour some, dip it in a little tub of, I can't believe it's not butter, which had been left out overnight, and it, softened. It's this highly processed fat. It's disgusting. And it was my naked dad and my sweaty naked mom, and he was holding a shotgun. And I just remember bringing it to school. It's 12 gauge, and a couple years later, I got a Tony Hawk shotgun. But man, I just remember my dad and like, you should vote for me. Because I was born to be president. I was born to be... now, little truth, I did get a shotgun for Christmas. It is an interesting story. But it would be fun if Beto's thing was, like, guns. I know this thing is anti-gun, so this is obviously not. But, like, what if he was out there with, like, he brings a gun on stage? Okay, what the fuck am I doing? This is horrible. Don't listen to this. Why are you listening to this? Sorry, did I say that out loud? I shouldn't. Okay, so let's play some Colbert here. Now, Trump is he hasn't been formally impeached, although the process is beginning, and it seems pretty goddamn unlikely that they're not going to get to impeachment on this fuckface. So the majority of Democrats are interested over more than 218, enough to convict in the House, are calling for it, and he. I think that's true. I'm sorry, I just realizing I might not know that for a fact, but. The more the scandal surrounding Ukraine churns on, the more ridiculous it becomes. Of course, Democrats are threatening to screw it up because they're the worst people, the Washington generals of politics, Pelosi and Schumer. No idea what they're doing. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's only true if they cared, if they had good intentions, and I don't necessarily think they do. Like, I would rather have Pelosi become president. And by the way, if Pence gets sucked into this whole thing and goes down with Trump, Pelosi will become the president, which is nuts. Man, it would be insane. It's never happened. Like, it's never gone to the Speaker of the House before. Jesus Christ, that would be so wild. And I'll take that over her or over Pence or Trump, but she's still one of the worst human beings on the planet. And it would be disgusting to have someone like that with that much power. But she ain't looking out for you. She's looking out for her donors. She's corrupt as shit. But as Trump keeps, fumbling around, Rudy Giuliani goes on TV with his pinky ring. By the way, weird fact about Rudy, his pinky ring, he wears a matching belly chain. So there's an image you'll never get out of your brain. You're welcome. And it's just watching these guys, and they're just throwing every stupid excuse against the wall. Lindsey Graham comes out with his bullshit. All these guys going on Sunday shows trying to, obfuscate and deflect and act like nothing's happening. And the Fox News is even starting to crack and show, differences. And it'll be pretty fun. I mean, I'm looking forward to it all happening, all going down. For all I know, I haven't looked at Twitter, which is usually where you see things first, in about a half hour or more or so, and it might have already happened for all I can tell. So anyway, the details aren't all that important for our purposes. You can find them on other shows. It's good quality entertainment right there. They're available. I don't want to get them wrong. But the Biden angle to this whole story, and then we're going to play some sound from Bernie. And he's not even talking about Biden, but I just wanted to say this. So part of the thing hinges around Hunter Biden. And apparently there was an investigation and they determined no wrongdoing had happened. It's just that a Ukrainian gas company was paying the United States vice president's son $50,000 a month to be on their board, to eat shrimp cocktail and have drinks and go to their pedophile islands. No, I don't know if that's what they did, but to be one of their boys and be on the team. But that's not considered corruption. But that should be corruption, right? How is that not? How is that considered okay? A well-known podcast I was listening to, Pod Save America, they were like, I heard one of the guys say, Biden's not corrupt. They're like, that's not it. We don't like. No, that's corruption. That's how it works. It's so normal that people can say that with a straight face. Of course that's corruption. I cast a very wide definition. Do you cast definitions? You cast nets, not definitions, I know. And that's that. But it's also absurd that that's where this thing is hinging, because the Pelosi wasn't going to do anything until one of her own got pulled into this, Biden and his family. And that's when they finally step up, when one of American oligarch class gets dragged into the mud with Trump. Like, what's it going to take? Torturing children wasn't enough? Stealing? Just taking money? All the bribes? The Emoluments Clause violations? All this other stuff? His children running around being friggin' ambassadors of fascism, or whatever it is they're up to? His hair? That he said he wants to bang his daughter? You could have impeached him for that. Forced the Republicans to agree it's okay to bang your daughter? That they're okay with that? It's not okay. It's embarrassing that I even have to say that. So it's gross to me that Biden, I mean, it's weird, I guess, too, but just that we're not looking at this as if this is a big stain on Biden. It's almost like, oh, that's not fair to the Bidens. They shouldn't be part of this. Oh, they were just doing standard corruption that we're all okay with. Not the kind where you shake down the foreign government, you withhold $400 million in military aid that was already slated to go to Ukraine for their war against Russia. They have a massive conflict right now, or not against, in resistance to. Russia invaded their territory. Shake them all down and withholding that in order to dig up the dirt on Biden to help Trump in his election effort. That's the crime. How dare Trump invite a foreign country to meddle in an American election? I agree. I'm not okay with that. I don't want that. That's supposed to be multinational corporations, though. It's not supposed to be countries. It's supposed to be corporations. We're supposed to invite them to meddle with our elections. They get to control our government. They get to form super PACs and spend all this dark money to get their candidates elected and to develop think tanks and to fund these things and like the Federalist Society and to have lists of Christian extremist judges and conservative extremist judges ready to go. They get to meddle in our elections. Corporations, billionaires, the assholes who run them. That's totally fine. But you get a country involved, oh, big problems. Big problems. You know, why are we okay with this? I made a kind of a point about this on Twitter, and somebody made a point about the meddling, our own meddling in elections, how America meddles in foreign elections. Like we should also call that illegal in order to have moral consistency. Twitter user Canis something. Simius. I don't know. It feels weird to say Twitter names. Is it private? I don't know. It's not, I guess. And but that made me think about how the reason we meddle in foreign elections and other countries' political process isn't for your benefit or me. It's for the multinational corporations that meddle in ours. It's for the corporations that we did the United Fruit Company in Guatemala. I think that's the 60s, over many decades. It's not because they want to make your life better. They want to provide goods and quote-unquote services to you, but it's for their profit. It's for capitalism. America's foreign policy is about maintaining dominance over resources so that the capitalists can continue to extract value from the earth, from its land, in the form of minerals and resources, and from labor and access to cheap labor. So multinational corporations meddle in American elections, and America meddles in foreign elections because we have the biggest. We're the SWAT team. We have all the toys and the tools, and we can go around and do anything we want. Another word for that, I guess, is colonialism, right? Man, I hope I'm making sense. I honestly have no idea. So let's just get into Bernie real quick. I'm going to keep this under an hour because I want to be done, but also that doesn't mean I'm not interested in doing this. I want you to know that. I'm just tired. I need to eat. It's Tuesday night. I'm going to work on changing my timing on this stuff and getting a little more of a routine. But it is important that I get this out consistently because that's kind of how success in this field works. Why am I trying if I'm not actually interested in building an audience? So we're just going to jump to this is Colbert. So this is Bernie on Colbert. He's being asked about Trump and corruption. Let's just hit play and let's listen to it.
One of the things that I want to know what you think about this is that some of the Republicans, some of the president's allies have said, like, oh, this thing's all so complicated. It's actually strangely simple because you hear what the president has to say, you understand the motivation completely, and there isn't that much to explain. He wanted this dirt, he had some leverage, and he used it.
I agree. This is not complicated, and it's consistent with his behavior.
Right. It's on brand.
It is. I mean, I honestly believe, I'm not a psychiatrist here, but I honestly believe.
I made a TikTok about this. You should listen to my TikTok on the computer. Yeah. That's right. It's all about developing brand recognition. Coffee is my drug of choice. Exhaustion is my pastime.
I want you to know.
But lie down.
Side game, what do they call it? Side hustle? Side hustles. What if he's selling shit on Etsy? He's doing Postmates at night. Although honestly, this guy would be that surprised, but okay.
And we'll talk about your problems. All right.
Little humor.
I'm not sure that he knows the difference between lying and truth-telling. I doubt very much that he understands what the Constitution of the United States of America is about.
I would love it if someone asked him how many amendments there are to the Constitution. He has no clue. Well, I've read the Constitution. Yeah, it's a great time. That's my Trump. That's the worst Trump. I can't believe it.
I don't think he understands that we have an emolument clause which says you cannot enrich yourself when you're president. I don't know that he understands that. And he is, he grew up as a very rich kid. I think he was a spoiled brat, and he thinks he could do anything that he wants to do. And it is...
Get him, Bernie.
Other people work hard. They tell the truth. They pay their taxes. That's not Donald Trump. And I think we have got to explain to him what the Constitution of the United States is about.
Well done. I agree, although this fetishizing the Constitution is a little absurd in my opinion. But Man, I would love to see a Bernie Trump debate. It would be so interesting. It would just be fascinating. I assume the right thinks Bernie's weak because he cares about people. This guy has been standing firm on his beliefs his entire life, facing overwhelming resistance and I don't even know if I want to say pressure, but just dismissal. You know, he was an outlier in his career, and he stuck to it. And look what he's done now. Look at the move. Look at the way every other candidate has been forced to adopt a platform similar to his. You know, at least they have to pay lip service to it. I mean, that alone will save lives, in a sense. We end up with Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg up there giving us some shit-ass healthcare. It'll still be better because of Bernie's influence, showing people that it's okay to demand better. You know, not that he's the first person to think of that, but, you know, in a way, it's almost like he's sort of this tragic. It's not tragic yet, you know, when he's old, you know, he dies eventually, that'll be a sad day. But hopefully it's not until after he's been president. But it's kind of like he was given like a sacred flame, like almost like a bad book. Like he has to keep a sacred flame alive, and he has to stand there and protect it and keep it alive and make sure no one puts it out. And then just to the point where the internet comes around and there's enough people that can Google the word socialism and they can look this shit up and they can research Sweden and Norway and all these other Nordic countries and democratic socialist countries where they care about their people and they still have capitalism in those countries too, by the way. With the quality of life in all those countries, they always tops the list of education measures and happiness measures and healthcare, all these things, height, and he's kept that flame going just long enough to like hand it over to the next generation of people that have learned from it and that can see that it is possible to expect life to be improved by human collective action, aka by governmental action. It doesn't have to just be a way for the corrupt to continue to pillage the world and steal the value of employees and workers. This wage labor and this fucking capitalism shit. So I hope he, in the tragic version of that story, he's barely crossing the line and he survives, but the pain of the fight was so much that it takes him down and he has to sacrifice himself. But he passes the flame on to the next person and to an entire new generation of people who spread that, and it becomes a fire. Not that we want fire as a great metaphor for inspiration, since we're all going to be burned alive in these, global warming, especially out here out west. But you know, his policies are very popular, is what I'm saying. They want us to think that he's extreme. They want us to think that this is radical. There's a reason the majority of his voters are supporters and donors are teachers and Walmart workers. Majority is not the right word for that, but he has more teachers and Walmart workers for him than anybody else. And young women and people of color. Black people, I believe, he has the highest percentage of I don't know exactly how those figures break down. But because the real cleave, is that right? Cleft? Something like that? Is class. It's ruling class versus ruled class. You know, I know I'm not saying anything you probably don't know if you're listening this far into this, and you'll probably share some of my viewpoints on this, but it's not color, it's not gender, it's not race. Color, that's the word I use for race. But it's none of that. Those aren't non-topics. Those aren't non-issues. But the power division is based on class. It's why the Hunter Bidens of the world get jobs. It's why just like the Donald Trump Juniors of the world have nothing to worry about. You know, it's all, and Bernie's fighting that. And it would be like, I think one of the reasons I'm for Bernie is I think in a way he'll be like a whistleblower president. We need a president that goes in there knocks down some doors and opens the curtains and shines some light on a lot of this stuff. Now, I'm not sure exactly, you got to imagine the amount of forces within the government that compel these folks to do what they do. And certainly there must be things and nuances and factors that a president has to consider that someone like me, who's somewhat aware of how things work, or certainly people who have no clue how anything works, don't know, that drives their decision making. But Bernie won't be a conventional foreign policy president. Bernie won't be a conventional domestic policy president. Bernie's the one that Wall Street is most afraid of. More than likely, and it's probably true of an Elizabeth Warren presidency, is that there'll probably be like some kind of economic collapse, not because of them. If anything, the conditions for economic collapse are already deeply set, and it seems like it's going to happen. And the Republicans are just desperate to hold off on recession until the election, because if that hits before the election, they're done. There's no getting out of that. And if it hits after and they lose, meaning a Democrat becomes president, then they have a very powerful tool, cudgel, to hit with. Look at how bad the economy is. As soon as Bernie got elected, as soon as Warren gets elected, praise Jesus. Let's hope Biden doesn't get elected. Been watching Righteous Gemstones on HBO, guys. It's a good show. Check it out. Man, it doesn't matter. They'll pin it on the Democrats, and the media will play right along. They'll both sides it. They'll contribute to the confusion. So anyway, I'm not sure what the hell I'm rambling about. We got one more Bernie. Then I'm wrapping it up, I think. I realized how much I have so much preparation here that I barely used. And we're going to end with a fact about one of the founding fathers. That's something I want to do for this show. It's one of the segments. I was going to do it at the beginning, but I forgot. So here's Bernie Colbert later on in the interview.
Senator Warren was on here last week, and I asked her about her plans for Medicare for all. And I'm gonna ask you the question that I asked her, at the risk of being accused of trumpeting Republican talking points. Is there an increase in taxes on the middle class to pay for Medicare for?
Okay, so this question, Colbert, and I'm not saying Colbert is trying to do this gotcha stuff here, but this is the question that he gets asked all the time. And he has a great answer for that. And one of the reasons he has a great answer is because he gets asked all the time. Warren gets asked all the time, too. They want to get them to say taxes will go up. They were looking for that soundbite. They want to pull that out. They've done such a good job of training Americans, training generation after generation to hate taxes, to despise the government. The right-wing philosophy is that the government can do no wrong. Which, by the way, is brilliant if you have no interest in doing right. It's a lot easier to prove chaos than it is to prove competency. Like a field goal. I feel like a field goal seems like a good metaphor. If you know football, that's the two yellow things they kick the ball between. Got to explain sports for you political heads out there. And I think we all understand it takes some skill to kick a field goal. There's a lot more ways to miss than there are to get it in between the things. I don't know what it is, 10 yards between them? I don't know what the number is, but 10 yards between and millions of yards on the other side, on each side. Goes on forever. So all you got to do to miss is not touch the ball. All you got to do to miss, kick it the opposite direction, the other way, up, down, shoot the ball, call in an airstrike, blow up the ball, tell someone's wife that they're a shitty wife. I don't know. Tell someone's husband that their wife is shitty. Something like that. Cause a fight. Release a horde of bees. Call upon the sacred temples of Satan to emerge, to send demons forth and to chew up the ball. My point is, if you're trying to kick a field goal, you got to work with a little team of people, and it takes some skill. And it's not that easy. But if you're trying not to kick a field goal, well, no problem. God, this is horrible. So let me just rewind a little bit.
Senator Warren was on here last week, and I asked her.
Oh, the tax. That's
Medicare
right.
for all.
I forgot what I was talking about. So what we've been taught is that is to expect nothing from the government, and that if the government does get involved, it's only going to get screwed up. And I'm not saying that there haven't been failures with government. I'm not saying that that's certainly not possible or won't happen again. But when you put people in power whose core tenet is that this process doesn't work, and then they prove it, you're just training people to give up. You're training people to get away from it, to not expect better, to not expect it to be done competently. We need to have some civil organization operating society. I'm not leaning into socialism because I have any particular loyalty to that word or to those concepts on their own. I just don't see the other philosophies as being capable of delivering what I want, but better than that. I want dignity for everybody. I want everybody to live up to their potential or something close to it. I want people, if they have to have a shit job, to get most of the value that they produce from their work. And I want that work to be reflected in the quality of their life. Meaning, it's fucking crap that your boss gets to steal your value from you. Yeah, you make an agreement, you don't like it, you can quit and go starve. Your options are work or starve. That's the scenario we have. That's what I want. And that means working together. And it fits an evolutionary framework too. Human beings evolved working together, cooperating, communicating. That's why we're all the same goddamn. Not getting this again, but we simulate each other's consciousnesses all the time. That's called communication. On a slightly more feeling level, it's called empathy. There's different ranges of ability to understand all that. It's complicated, but we're wired for each other. I was reading some research about, and forgive me if I said this in a previous podcast, I think I was telling somebody at work about this, about laughter in babies. Why do babies laugh? There's been it's a thing, because babies start to laugh around age 6 weeks or so, which is really early. It's before they talk. Babies generally, I'm sure there's exceptions, blah, 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 but babies laugh and giggle way before they verbalize human words, as if they're like good at dolphin language or something. And so researchers have always wondered, like, what's up with this laughter shit? Why are babies all into it? And I don't know how you are, but I tear up a little. Not every time, but whenever there's like a good baby laugh, those videos are mesmerizing, and I tear up. It's a very joyful tearing up. It's not like the usual I feel when I watch a Viagra commercial or something, because I'll never be that handsome when I'm old. But babies, man, it's amazing. There's something really powerful. And I remember reading a theory. I'm just rambling about this, man. That they think it's, why do we respond to baby laughter with such power? Meaning, why does it provoke such emotion from people? Almost universally, people like really, really enjoy a good baby belly laugh. And the hypothesis was that it's like a reward for how hard it is. It's sort of like you're kind of wired to feel that joy, because if you didn't have it, it's just a lot of pain. It's a lot of being tired. It's a lot of difficulty. And I think there might be something that, this isn't the research I was just referring to, but this is earlier. So, because I don't know, I've been pursuing comedy career for a long time, so I've read more than my share of articles about humor and stuff like that, and even the science of it. But I would probably add that we didn't evolve raising children as pairs. Human beings weren't like squared up in ones and twos and off just raising a few kids just as a one and a two, or is two parents. They were groups. Children basically, I mean, they had their mother, but they were tight-knit communities. So there were numerous women, numerous men. They didn't know who the dads were. I'm not sure they really understood sperm. If you listen to Chris Ryan, who has a podcast, Tangentially Speaking, or read his book, Sex at Dawn, and his newest book is just out, Civilized to Death. I'm excited to read it. There's numerous cases in hunter-gatherer societies where they have concepts of like multiple parents, and even like where semen from multiple men. I don't know. We were horny bonobo chimps, but children weren't raised by single parents. So I doubt it was as hard as we like to imagine it was. Of course, there's stress, there's difficulty with worry and stuff. But if you're collectively raising your kids, and children are growing up with other children around their age, with older kids as models, and then groups of men, groups of women working together. They're very egalitarian. I'm guessing the psychological toil and burden of raising a child, aside from the fact that infant mortality was pretty high comparatively, we are far better at keeping babies alive. Although America has very low infant mortality rates, which is shameful and embarrassing. So this laughter thing recently that I was reading about is they were talking about childhood and children. Research with they're looking for laughter behavior patterns across different cultures, because you can make the assumption or the fairly reasonable hypothesis that laughter might be culturally based, and there's definitely a lot of reasons or a lot of ways that humor is affected by culture. But what they discovered was that children 2 or 3 years old have very similar laughter things that make them laugh. Doesn't matter what the culture was, even younger than 2. And the number one thing was peekaboo. All kids dig, and I tested it. I was at a coworker, I should say friend, a friend's house, and he had a baby. I did a little peekaboo. The kid was cracking up, totally cracking up. He didn't like my horse fucking joke, but it's okay. And for all children love peekaboo. It tickles their psychology in a way that just they can't not dig that you put your hands in front of your face, you disappear, you move your hands with the funny facial expression. See, that's my trick, is you cover your face, change your facial expression, open it, do it again, change your facial expression, close your eyes, whatever, make a funny face. Boom. Big eyes, kid laughs, everybody goes home happy. But what they also noticed was that they tested kids laughing with like other kids in the room, and they tested them alone, which is kind of cruel, but I mean, it's just jokes and stuff. It's not like it's not drastic. So, but they noticed when children laugh alone, they notice less laughter, and they notice that they kind of look around. Like when they're together, they always, I don't know if always is right, but they look at each other. People look at each other. As a stand-up, I've noticed that too, and it's a thing. People like to, when they have a good laugh, that's why watching a funny movie is much more fun with friends than it is not. It's fun. You look at each other and you kind of agree and you sort of bond around that. I do feel like I've already talked about this on this show. I'm sorry. I can barely keep track of any of this. But that speaks to our social nature. That speaks to our shared collective, our shared consciousness. We need validation from others. We need to confirm reality from others, and we do that largely, or we do that instinctively. It's deeply made in our bones, which is why like collective action, collective organizing, collective labor, all these things are to me the proper path to choose for how to organize a society. Of course, like everything, it's always complicated. Let's just keep going. Let's get to the end of this one.
There an increase in taxes on the middle class to pay for Medicare for all, or rather, where would the tax burden go to pay for that?
Okay. Under my legislation, which has 15
bitches get stitches
co-sponsors, I believe, in the Senate now, nobody in America will pay any more premiums. Just talked to a woman the other day who pays $1,700 a month, $20,000 a year, gone. No more co-payments, gone. No more out-of-pocket expenses, gone. Nobody will go bankrupt. Right now, 500,000 people in America go bankrupt because of medical bills. All of that is gone.
That's 5 million people every 10 years go bankrupt because they got sick.
Nobody
or injured.
Nobody in America under my bill will pay more than $200 a year in total for their prescription drugs, and will stop the ripping off of the American people by the pharmaceutical industry. Now, having said that, is health care free? No, it is not. So
this is a great answer. If he just says, yes, I'm going to raise your taxes, that just hands a giant weapon to everybody on the side. The weapon the Democrats are trying to use is to say, Bernie's going to take away your health insurance. Bernie's going to force you to give up your health insurance. Yeah. You'll spend half as much, and you'll get something far better.
So what we do is exempt the first $29,000 of a person's income. You make less than $29,000, you pay nothing in taxes. Above that, in a progressive way, with the wealthiest people in this country paying the largest percentage, people do pay more in taxes. But if I say to you that right now...
I love that. $29,000, you don't pay any taxes, and you still get access to the healthcare system under this plan. I'm perfectly okay with that. There's going to be people that are going to say, wait, if you don't have any money, you still get to go do something for free. Yes. Yes, we want that person to feel okay. We want that person to be healthy. We want that person to be able to overcome whatever it is that they have to. Maybe they're starting a business. Maybe they've always wanted to. Maybe they're going into a trade or school. Or maybe they're just fucking tired. Or maybe they just need help. I really don't think people are just going to become lazy and sit around. Will there be a few of that? Yeah, probably. Nothing's 100%. There's probably going to be some of that. That's far less of a problem than the oil subsidies, than the very, very generous government benefits that the mega wealthy enjoy. We're conditioned to be okay with rich people getting stuff from the government, with massive corporations getting stuff from the government. What the fuck do you think the military is? That's a service to the corporations. And we're conditioned to be okay with them benefiting. But you, well, now you're violating individualism. You're not pulling on your bootstraps. You're making choices. You're showing a lack of moral character because you think the government should help you. What about the $28 billion that Trump has forked over to farmers who he's fucked over because of his tariffs? Answer me that, Beto. No, here's Bernie some more.
Now you're paying $20,000 a year in a tax called a premium for the insurance companies. That's gone. And then I say, Stephen, you're paying $10,000 a year now to the federal government. You're $10,000 to the good. You would ask me, where do I sign up for that? So,
boom, big laugh.
Will people?
He's right. It's about cost, and that's how Elizabeth Warren frames her answer to this question. She goes right into cost. She doesn't say, "I will raise your taxes." She's smart enough not to do that. It wouldn't bother me if she did that. It wouldn't bother you probably, but that's a rhetorical soundbite tool that, even though you could even make the case it's disingenuous that they're not saying that straight up, and that's just such a clear, simple term. And I would probably agree to some degree, but I would add that because it's politics, it's irresponsible not to do that. They can't. You have to be careful of those sound bites and the way that stuff can be framed. And they know for a fact this is the Republicans' number one issue. Their whole thing is about making sure that the rich get to stay rich and can continue to acquire wealth, ill-gotten gains, extracting value from their employees, extracting value from workers, extracting value using the government to open markets or open access to cheaper labor markets, to use the military to ensure access to resources. When your boss is on vacation, when your boss is posting up those nice Instagram pictures, what you're seeing is your value being spent. When your boss's children don't have to work or do anything, and billionaires inheriting all this, or grandchildren of billionaires and all this stuff, what you're seeing is your value. Someone else's. It's not them. They're not doing the work. They wouldn't have any of it without the work. It's theirs because they wrote the rules to allow them to steal it. It's like if bank robbers took over the government and wrote a law saying it's legal to steal from banks, and then they go and they do that. And then we all say, oh, my God, look how much he's worked. He has such a skill, so much talent. She. I do like that there's a lot of shitty CEO women presidents, too. It's nice to be like, I'm for equality. I want to see, representation across everything. I'm happy that we're going through this correction. It's been a long time coming. Progress never happens fast enough. But it does seem like we're in the middle of that, and it's painful for a lot of people because it's confusing and it's scary to the whiteies. The white penises out there worried about I'm going to lose my privileges. I'm not sure that's how they would frame it. But it's destabilizing in some ways. But it is nice, though. Like we'll know we're really making it when we have equal number of women serial killers. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think men are generally going to dominate the serial killer game for a long time. That's a big area of improvement. I'd like to see more masculinity, whatever's going on with this planet. So now I was going to get into Bernie's speaking of CEO tax rates. Okay, let's just cover this real fast. Bernie's released information about how he wants to tax companies that pay CEOs more than they pay their workers by a lot. the ratio, the CEO to worker pay ratios are out there. It's like several hundred, 200, 300, 400. And Bernie wants to impose taxes on companies that permit that in order to incentivize them to lower that number. There's a lot of good arguments for all of it, and I agree with it. The Madrigon, which is the world's largest co-op business based in Spain, I heard an interview. I think it was Ben Burgess, who's a good guy on Twitter, who's also a frequent guest on the Michael Brooks Show, which is another show I frequent. Made the point that they have a law that the highest paid people in Madrigon, because it is structured. It's not. It's a very interesting case. I want to learn more about it and share some more about it. I don't even know how to spell it, to be honest. I think it's something like 80,000 employees. They have really excellent benefits. It's a growing thing. They're very productive. They're profitable. But they have a law that says, the profits go to the people who produce the profits. That's why profits aren't bad. It's profit taking, extracting to the executive class and the shareholders, outside company shareholders, who do nothing, whose only skill was that they were already rich or already had money. So profits alone aren't wrong or bad, but which is why they should go to the people who make them, and that's what Madrigon does. But one of their rules is the highest paid person cannot make more than 9 times what the lowest paid person makes. It seems like a big difference. Let's say the lowest paid person is paid $50,000. The highest paid person, therefore, can only make $450,000. That's pretty good. I'm not for complete equalization of all rates. Someone has they've been there longer. There's all kinds of reasons why someone might make more money, and I don't know exactly how it works in the co-op, but they have a lot of meetings. They do it's democratized workplace, so there's elections all the time, and I'm sure there's ways to remove people at the top, but they elect their leaders, so people get elected into these positions, and it works. It's not perfect. I'm sure there's everything's got to have tension points and things that change and personality differences, but people are very loyal to these kind of places because they feel fulfilled and they feel respected. And so if the people at the top want to make more money, they got to make sure the people at the bottom make more money. I don't think that's an unreasonable structure. All right, there's all kinds of more to say about everything. And I, as usual, feel like I'm completely whiffing on this show. I'm going to put it out on the internet anyway, and we'll see what happens. And then I'll listen to it, and it'll be fine. It'll be okay. But let's debut a segment. Are you ready? This is exciting. Here we go. This is called Perfection. Time for a perfect fact for the perfect for the perfect listener. Are you ready? So I've been reading up on the Founding Fathers. I'm interested in these guys. I want to know more about them and what they were up to. And turns out they were all terrible people. Over half, something like 2/3 of them were slave owners, which means they were, I don't know which ones were rapists, but it's safe to say Washington or Jefferson. I'm sure more of them were. I know that sexual, violence was common among this class. Not always, but it's a thing that was happening. They're human traffickers. These guys were really bad people. It was the times. Yeah, well, fuck that. I don't care. Let's be honest about it. I'm not venerating these pieces of shit. They set up a nation where they were the villains in the stories of the vast majority of the population. If you had any pigment in your skin, that you were a potential victim of theirs. If you were a woman, they would restrict your power. Sure, they were nice to their wives and women of their class. Although I can't imagine it was always a hoot being a female back then among these people. And I could be wrong. I'm sure there were examples where it was okay. Things are usually more nuanced and one understands. But let's just do this little perfect fact. I mean, wait, is that what I call it? Perfection or something? Oh, yeah, perfection. It's a horrible show. So this is from Wikipedia and the segment about George Washington and slavery from a subheading called Evolution of Washington's Attitudes. So here, I'll just read this paragraph. There is little evidence that Washington seriously questioned the ethics of slavery before the Revolution. In the 1760s, he often participated in tavern lotteries. Remember that phrase. Events in which defaulters' debts were settled by raffling off their assets to a high-spirited crowd. So some guy defaulted on his debt, but he had assets, like a car, like a tennis court. But back then, their assets were livestock, farm animals, and they included humans as among their farm animals. That's how our nation was founded. Continuing. In 1769, Washington co-managed one such lottery in which 55 slaves were sold, among them 6 families and 5 females with children. 55 people. And these fucking white guys have a party at a bar to raffle them off? Human beings? Men and women and children? How fucking terrifying must have been to be them. To be one of them. To be one of those kids born into slavery, watching their parents looking around. Because when you're a kid, you look at your parents. Your parents are your filter. Your parents, you see your parent freaking out. It freaks you out. You see your parent smiling and having a good time. It feels good. That's why it's nice to go to the Cheesecake Factory. Don't go to the Cheesecake Distribution Center. Oh, man. I'm making this joke for. The more valuable married males were raffled together with their wives and children. Less valuable slaves were separated from their families into different lots. Robin and Bella, for example, were raffled together as husband and wife, while their children, 12-year-old Suki and 7-year-old Betty, were listed in a separate lot. So by lot, that's like a, I think you probably can tell what that is, but it's a grouping. They took the children away. They kidnapped the children. They separated families. Trump is doing similar things. Only chance dictated whether the family would remain together, and with 1,840 tickets on sale, the odds were not good. I don't quite know how the tickets thing works. It's the raffle section of it. But, so second paragraph, or next paragraph. The historian Henry Weinsack concludes that the repugnance Washington felt at this cruelty in which he had participated prompted his decision not to break up slave families by sale or purchase, and marks the beginning of a transformation in Washington's thinking about the morality of slavery. Oh, that's nice. So apparently, and I don't know the full story, and by the way, there's a sentence that refutes exactly what I just said in a second, but they like to tell you that Washington, he owned slaves. Like, they can't deny that, so this narrative is developed that, but he really didn't like it. He really regretted it. He really felt bad. In fact, he hated it so much that he kept families together. That's one thing that they give him credit for. Apparently, I read this entire thing, but apparently he was like a very practical kind of operator. He was hands-on, detailed, everything was written down, sort of, kind of hard-working, but making others work hard, but he managed things with rigor and routine. And he figured out that people don't like when you steal their children or separate a husband and wife or siblings. So he kept families together because they worked better. It's for him, not because he gave a shit. So continuing, Weinsack writes that in 1775, Washington took more slaves than he needed. Rather than break up the family of a slave, he had agreed to accept the payment of a debt. Okay, so he could have said, no, I only need the father and the mom. You can keep, I don't need the kids. I don't know the exact specifics of this one, but this guy's claiming that because he allowed the family to stay together, that shows that he cared, that he was such a nice man. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? The historians Philip D. Morgan and Peter Henriques are skeptical of Weinsack's conclusion and believe there is no evidence of any change in Washington's moral thinking at this stage. Morgan writes that in 1772, Washington was, quote-unquote, all business and might have been buying livestock in purchasing more slaves who were to be, in Washington's words, straight-limbed and L-I-M-B apostrophe D. I know, words change, it's fine. straight-limbed and in every respect strong and likely with good teeth and good countenance. What the fuck? This is the guy on a dollar bill. This is the guy on Mount Rushmore. Our capital is named after him. The state is named after him. The football team of the capital is called the Washington Redskins, a flagrantly racist term. There's statues all over the place of this guy. Schools all over the place of this guy. This human trafficker, this slaver. Morgan gives a different account of the 1775 purchase, writing that Washington resold the slave because of the slave's resistance to being separated from family, and that the decision to do so was no more than, quote unquote, no more than the conventional piety of large Virginia planters who usually said they did not want to break up slave families and often did it anyway. It's also kind of unnerving to call them slaves. I've heard it referenced that we should describe them as enslaved people. Now, that might seem pedantic, but I think there's some clarity to calling them enslaved people and an enslaved person, because I'm not going to necessarily automatically shift the lexicon in my brain, but it's using the word slave to me kind of varnishes the right word, kind of gives you a sense that it was something that happened in the distant past or something that is over. Like, we don't do slavery now. Although slavery is still legal. According to the Constitution, it's legal if you're imprisoned. So it removes the humanity from the concept, kind of. It's sort of like, it's this thing we all agree was terrible. Oh yeah, no, it was really bad. We shouldn't have done that. But when you say, oh yeah, there were people and there were slaves, it's sort of you know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, there were Americans and then there were the slaves. There was the citizens and the slaves. There was even immigrant has more humanity than the word slave in it. Like, we don't automatically just put humanity into slave, and we should. Like, if you look at America with that in mind, this was a nightmare to be. A fucking terrifying horror film of a continent run by these assholes, these people like Washington, Jefferson, the precursors of capitalism, founding fathers. Fuck that. Yeah, baby, music. Let it roll. I have so much more to learn about all this. I feel I'm very aware of my ignorance. Expose myself to more of this information, learn more about it all, and gain an appreciation and a context for it. I've been looking into the founding fathers and into like slavery, like Lincoln, by the way. He supported, I can't think of the word for it, but there was a movement during his time and before to round up black people and send them out of America back to the Caribbean, away from American shores. And he was like a supporter of doing some of that, or back to Africa in certain areas. So, like, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of information that they don't put in the history books that we don't know about. But the kind of recent upsurge of fascism and authoritarianism and white supremacy and all these, with Trump empowering the very worst of American character and American culture, largely around this white patriarchy thing, is sort of what was the impetus for me to like look into this stuff. Okay, well, what founded America? What got us here? There's a really great interview on the Empire Files, which is Abby Martin's show on YouTube, with a professor of history. It's Gerald something. I don't know. Gerald Horn, I want to say. Absolutely fascinating. I'll include a link in the description. Riveting. Really interesting about America's founding. That will put a lot of stuff into perspective. I think you should watch it. And yeah, well, there it is. The Perfect Union. We did it. Went way longer than I expected to. I hope some of this was listenable. It's very weird doing this alone. I'm not going to lie. And I say it every time. But I'm excited. We got some guests coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is just the beginning. Years from now, we're all going to look back on this first episode and say, man, remember that Hank guy when he did 2 episodes of that one show? So, no, I don't. We got more. We just got to do it all. So, we'll see where it goes. like all things, the 10th one will be better than the first one, and the 50th one will be better than the 10th one. And the 90th will be worse than the 50th, and then the 100th will be better than the 90th. So, it's just how podcasting works. Chuck, an experienced podcaster. Thanks for listening. Take care. Find me on Twitter. Find it all, look it all up and shit, and, we'll see where we go. See you on Winners and Losers, and see you on the Perfect Union.